I love hidden movement games. They're such a great concept. One player is secretly moving around a map and the others are trying to hunt them down. If you've played one of these, you've played a hidden movement game. I've played all of them, so I know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that none of them are perfect. None of them are 10 out of 10, call off the search, delete your dating profile, you've found the one. And the main ones I would recommend aren't even in print anymore, so even if I did have a favorite, I would just be taunting you if I told you that it's Letters from Whitechapel, so I won't do that. But two exciting new hidden movement games have been released in the last year, Mind Management and Sniper Elite the board game. So I'm here to review them and compare them and tell you which one I'd recommend, because one of them is my new go-to hidden movement game. And they're actually very different from each other. Mind Management is what I'd call a deduction-heavy hidden movement game, much like Letters from Whitechapel, where the game is all about the hunt, and the hunters have to piece together the clues they've collected to track the hider's movement. Whereas Sniper Elite is what I'd call an action-heavy hidden movement game, like Spectre Ops and Fury of Dracula, where there's a lot more going on, both factions have weapons, and the hunters don't just have to catch them, but kill them as well. One of the best feelings in a hidden movement game is staying hidden while the others have no idea where you are. It takes us back to being in the perfect hiding spot in hide and seek and feeling really clever about it. It sounds obvious, the best thing about a hidden movement game is staying hidden, but in Scotland Yard, the original hidden movement game, you had to reveal where you are every few turns. It's the equivalent of your mum pointing at the cupboard that your brother is hiding in because she thinks you're too stupid to work it out on your own. In Mind Management, that's the goal of the game, to stay hidden. And as soon as you get caught, it's game over, you've lost, which makes the game really tense, especially when they're right on top of you and you feel one move away from capture. It's that jeopardy which makes the game so exciting. But in Sniper Elite, you won't stay hidden for the whole game. You have an objective to complete, a point on the map that you have to reach. And when you do, you have to reveal you've done it and where. So the hunters could be completely in the dark and suddenly they know exactly where you are. Which makes sense because you just blew up their submarine. Mechanically, it helps balance the game, and it's good for both sides because there's nothing worse in hide and seek than sitting around waiting to be found for 20 minutes. Revealing yourself keeps the thrill in the chase, and crucially, it's on your terms. You get to decide when to complete your objective, based on where the hunters are and when you think it's safe. It's just like in a video game. You wait until the coast is clear before you attract attention, so that when you alert the guards, you'll have time to escape. That's a common choice in Sniper Elite, when to give away information. My favorite mechanism is that when you move, you can decide whether to silently walk one space or run 2 or 3 spaces, which makes noise and alerts any hunters you run past. They won't know exactly where you are, just that you must be near. It's beautifully simple, super thematic, and very video gamey. You're pushing lightly on the D-pad to creep past them, but you can't take it slow for too long because you only have 10 turns to get across the map and complete your first objective. As the hunters, you're desperate for a clue. You start the game in the dark. All you know is that the sniper came in at one of 4 start points. It's stressful. It's like you've just found mouse droppings in your house and you've got no idea where they are or where they're going to strike next. To get a better idea, one of the hunters can spend their entire turn to gather intel and ask the sniper if they're in their coloured sector. At first I hated this because it feels like such a cheat to rule out or rule in a quarter of the board, and it doesn't make sense for the theme, but the more I've played the game, the more I've mellowed on it. If you gather intel, you can't move that team's soldiers this round, so you're not advancing your net. You might know where the sniper is, but you're no closer to catching them. Once you have a rough idea, a hunter can do a sweep action to check if the sniper's in 3 adjacent spaces. Often this can feel like a shot in the dark, and you'll do many sweep actions and get nothing. But when you do get a hit, it's huge because you're right next to them. And this is a complaint I have with Sniper Elite. As the hunters, you can go 7 or 8 turns feeling lost, not finding any breadcrumbs, and then bam! They're right next to you, maybe even close enough to attack. It's like you've been lost in the corridors of a cinema for ages, only to enter the screen during the climax of the movie. There's no build-up. Except there is, you're just not aware of it. You will be closing off paths, trying to corner them, and the sniper will be feeling that pressure, but you, the hunter, can't see it's working. It's a frustrating lack of feedback that can disillusion the hunters and make them feel like they're not playing well, which leads them to making bad decisions just to get some information. Like sending a needy text to someone you've been on one date with because they haven't replied in 6 hours.
Hey Sniper, I know you're probably out with your friends. I just wanted to say how lovely it was to see you at the last objective. I'm actually weirdly in the red sector at the moment, so if you fancied a drink, if you do, just kill one of my soldiers and I'll know it's you. But no worries if not.
Mind management is the opposite. Every turn, the hunters will gain information that adds to your case file, so that the tension only ever builds towards you figuring it all out and winning, or getting really close but not quite catching them in time. This is the crucial difference between action-heavy and deduction-heavy games. Sniper Elite is all about where are you right now, whereas in Mind Management, the hunters are an overprotective parent. They want to know where you've been. Much like in Letters from Whitechapel, you're creating a trail of their movement to work out where they are now. The hider's movement is much simpler and so more predictable than Sniper Elite. They can only move one space per turn and they can't ever go back to where they've been. They move like the snake in the mobile game Snake, which helps the game crescendo because there's only so many spaces left they can go. To search for clues, the hunter can ask about one of the features in their location. For example, have you ever been in a space with a bookstore? And if they have, they must put a footprint onto a bookstore that they visited. Later on, a hunter can visit that footprint and take a reveal action to find out what turn the hider was there. It's immensely satisfying as you build that snake path, proof that you're getting closer. It's that asking about a feature rather than a specific place which sets Mind Management apart from all other hidden movement games. I think it makes for a less authentic chase because you can literally find a clue over the other side of the city, which doesn't make a lot of sense. But it also means a hunter character is never too far from the action, which can be a real source of frustration in other hidden movement games. And it gives the hider the ability to withhold useful information. If the hunter asks if they've been to a coffee shop and they've been to more than one, they can choose which place to put the clue, and they will pick the least useful. Late in the game, you can be desperate to know if they've been to a specific square, but powerless to find out, and it's heartbreaking. At the start of the game, the hider is given 3 types of feature to circle on their board. Every time they visit one of them, they collect a recruit, and if they can collect all of them, they immediately win the game. As the hunter, you know when they're picking up recruits, but not where from, so as you begin to uncover their trail, you can see where they've been and guess what their hidden goals are, and then use that to predict where they'll go next. There are so many aspects you can deduce information from, but it's so rich that I always feel bad that I'm not doing more. It's like I've been left to survive in the woods, and yeah, I'll get some berries and mushrooms, but if an expert took over, they would get all this extra food that I didn't even know was there. Knowing that there's more to be found makes you want to keep discussing it and playing it around in your head, which can lead to some real downtime for the hider who is just waiting for their next turn. And that's a problem in all hidden movement games, but it's even more pronounced here. To keep track of it all, there are these brilliant mini whiteboards that you can write on. I like that they've limited how much you can write down because with free reign on a piece of paper, you would overwhelm yourself with notes. See, Mind Management is more of a deduction game than a hidden movement game. Even with the notes, I find myself having to repeat facts out loud, like they're juggling balls, knowing that if I stop saying them, they'll fall to the floor and I'll immediately lose my train of thought. Okay, so we know he did the mind slip at 10, so if he has this character, it could be here, here, or here, but if he has this character, he could be here or here, except we've ruled out these 2 features, so that means someone's having pizza. Wait, what did I say? And all of that is just the introductory game. In the full game of Mind Management, the hider has 4 immortal characters on the board, acting like henchmen to mess with the hunters. If an immortal is in a space, the hunter can't take actions there, so they can use them to block the questions they don't want to answer. It adds a whole other layer to the game. It's a cool mechanism, and again, unusual for a hidden movement game. But they pull focus away from the chase, and adding this extra thing to consider slows everything down. It doesn't stop there. Mind Management has 14 mini expansions you can introduce to switch up the gameplay. Little packs that add a few cards and each come with a mini comic book. It's marketed as a way to balance the game. If one side is winning too much, you can shift it in the other direction. But each pack adds new rules, new bits to set up. You get to a point where there's so many moving parts, how can you possibly remember to use them all effectively? Thankfully, they are all optional, and if I was playing with someone new, or for the first time in a few months, I would leave them all in the box. Mind Management is a brain burner for the hunters, more so than any hidden movement game I've played. I thought I would want more information to play with, but it turns out I prefer the leanness of Sniper Elite because it gets to the point quicker. I don't want to be bogged down in detective work when there's a sniper stalking my army base. And that's not to say there isn't plenty for the hunters to discuss in Sniper Elite. You can eliminate places the sniper can't be, and the game gives you these cubes to track that info, which is really helpful. But after a few turns, they're useless, like footprints in the sand getting washed away by the sea because the hider moves so fast. You have to learn to let go and live in the moment. Each hunter player controls a team of 3 soldiers, so there are 9 men on the board hunting the sniper. That's a lot of people to creep past. And the sniper can't move through a space with a soldier in it, so you will block paths and doorways to stop them from reaching the objective points. And if you do get in their way, that's when the sniper will do what snipers do best and shoot you. The sniper draws tokens from a bag to see if they get enough hits for how far away their target is. There's a bittersweet feeling to getting shot. It means you are on the right track, and it gives you a good idea where the sniper could be. But that character is now off the map and you'll waste an action bringing them back to life. I was really nervous about this aspect of the game because combat mechanisms can be convoluted and confusing, but this one is smooth. It massively favors the sniper getting a hit. They are elite after all, and every time you kill someone you get better at shooting. But you'd be a fool to do it too often because you'll give your position away and lose. And I like that the game allows you to play it your own way. If you prefer to be stealthy and barely use your gun, you can. The sniper also starts with 3 loadout cards that give you special powers. I love the sound masking, which lets you run without alerting anyone this turn. And the trench gun is a vital last-ditch way to kill hunters if you've been surrounded. They're all really powerful, and timing when to use them is a fun part of the sniper's game. The hunters also have special abilities, but only the captain of each squad can use them, which makes their placement and aliveness really important. The fear with an action-heavy game is that these extra appendages weigh it down. I remember trying to learn Spectre Ops for the first time and struggling with the line of sight rules, and no matter how many games of Fury of Dracula I'd played, I'd always have my head in the rulebook at some point. But Sniper Elite is streamlined. It's quick to set up, and even if you haven't played it in a while, it's easy to slip back into, like a pair of pajamas. Coming back to Mind Management is like trying to pull on a pair of jeans that have just been washed. It's a struggle, and knowing that creates a barrier in my head that means I'm much less likely to pull it off the shelf. It's not that the game itself is even that complicated. There's just something impenetrable about the whole package. The rulebook is confusing the way it tries to teach 2 versions of the game at once. The terminology makes it harder to follow. The messy artwork stresses me out, and then you've got this crazy theme that doesn't seem to fit the gameplay, but yet they've doubled down on it being there at every turn. I don't know the comic book it's based on. I've heard it's brilliant, but learning about it for the first time through this game is a challenge. It's like being roped into playing make-believe with a kid who informs you that you're a wizard and they're a fireman and now you've got a sword fight to save Peppa Pig. Whereas the theme in Sniper Elite takes a welcome back seat. It's based on a popular video game, but beyond the front cover you wouldn't know it. I played the video game once and I was turned off by the graphic depictions of bullets flying through vital organs, so I appreciate them setting their own tone with this game. It's as inoffensive as you could achieve while still having Nazis and killing in your game. Both games are shorter than other big hidden movement games. In Letters from Whitechapel, the hider could have up to 60 or more turns. In Whitehall Mystery, it's 45. In Spectre Ops, 40. Whereas in Sniper Elite, it's a maximum of 20 turns. And in Mind Management, only 16. Fury of Dracula, like a vampire, can last forever. The 2 games have a very different feel. As a hider in Sniper Elite, you have the freedom to take your own approach. You can be slow and stealthy or run around and shoot things. And it's fun finding ways to toy with the hunters by doubling back on yourself or by shooting someone as a bluff so they think you're going one way but you go the other. The two maps are really well designed with choke points that force you to make tough decisions. And they each have their own character, like these narrow elevated walkways, so they require a completely different approach. There's more than enough variability in the box, but it's hard to resist the attraction of the 2 extra maps in the expansion. A change of scenery without needing to learn anything extra, like going on holiday to Canada. Hiding in mine management is more restrictive. You usually only have 3 spaces you can move to each turn. You have to plan your path carefully, timing when best to use the temple spaces that allow diagonal movement, and your 1 mind slip token which breaks the rules and lets you jump across your snake path. Your best tactic is to block them from getting useful information, which requires real strategy, but it doesn't carry the electric feeling of running through a map that I want from a hidden movement game. In Sniper Elite, I like that you're trying to read the player. Would they have been brazen enough to take the narrow path near so many soldiers, or gone the long way round? And the chase always builds because you know the second objective must be in a different sector. Whereas in mine management, the hider doesn't have to get recruits to win the game, so they're harder to predict. And with the map being so uniform, it won't help you guess their behavior. It's much more about reading the clues than the player, but that does mean you're following concrete evidence, and the deduction is much richer for it. So I would recommend Sniper Elite. I think it's the best all-rounder. It's the one that's staying in my collection because I know I'll actually play it, and it's by far the best action-heavy hidden movement game because it has all the fun without the thick rulebook. I still have a soft spot for deduction-heavy games too, but I prefer the simplicity of searching for clues in Letters from Whitechapel. I would still recommend mine management to some people. I think for 80% of people, Sniper Elite is the right game, but mine management is for those who love thinky deduction games and relish exploring additional mechanisms. I find myself impressed by its innovation. It's a very clever game, but it's not one I'm drawn to play. If you want to learn about some other hidden movement games, including Letters from Whitechapel, watch my Hidden Movement Mega Review. And if you're looking for something more family friendly, I'd still recommend Pyramid of Penguin and Nuns on the Run, that both turn the idea on its head by having multiple hiders and 1 hunter trying to catch them. If you want to buy any of the games mentioned, there are links below. And to support videos like this and get my monthly newsletter, where I review even more games, please become a patron of the channel at patreon.com/actuallol. I'm John Perkis, thanks for watching.